Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review today. I'm here to tell you about the latest from Archspire, Bleed the Future, out October 29th on Season of Mist. This album has 8 tracks, 32 minutes in length, and this is the band's 4th full-length studio album. They are a Canadian technical death metal band. Now this record from a structural perspective is super simple. There's not much to add here. There's really no frills. It just takes you from the first to the last song in almost a linear motion. It's very straightforward from that perspective. There are ebbs and flows, so it's not like the album becomes a little bit overly balanced. It is balanced, but it has still definition of parameters from track to track that gives you the necessary nuances as you navigate through it. But it's one of those albums that you blink and it's done. You sit back, you press play, you let the record do all the work. You really don't have to do much in order to enjoy the ride that this album is going to take you on. Once you get into the soundscape, this is technical death metal on steroids. I mean, if technical death metal was a sport in the Olympics, this album would be the Russian team. That's how it feels and that's how it comes across. Tons of power, tons of aggression, real heavy, real fast, a lot of movement, a lot of things coming at you. You really feel like you're being pounded to submission with every single track. The main key element is that you can see the punches coming at you. You're not just feeling the punches, you're not just getting hit and covering your face. No, you actually see where they're coming from. And that's what makes this album special. Sometimes you have albums like these and the heaviness and brutality of the record is such that it kind of covers everything else, and it's really hard to define what makes each song unique. This album has the ability to be both things. Give you the definition of each track, you can see the uniqueness within the songs themselves, and then you can also feel the brutality and heaviness that it has that blankets all of that. So it's an album that has a lot to give to the listener, has that interesting duality that in my opinion makes the album better. It gives it more playability, it makes it more enjoyable, and the fact that it's only 32 minutes really forces you to go back and listen to it again so that you can get that barrage being put through that technical death metal blender one more time, or time in and time again. It's just an album that has incredible sound, like I said, really defined, and it doesn't lose anything just because it's super heavy, just because it's super brutal. Within the soundscape, there are 3 key elements that you have to address: bass, drums, and guitars. These 3 become the cornerstones or the pillars of how this album is designed. Starting off with the bass, I mean, Abandon the Linear. This song has some of the greatest bass lines ever. I'm going to talk more about it because this is one of my favorite songs, but I just want to say that the bass lines on this track are just outstanding. But the bass throughout the whole record plays a very important role, and one that I liked in terms of not being uniform from track to track. Some songs jumping a little bit more into the forefront, taking a little bit more of the spotlight, dominating the overall soundscape, and even impacting the atmosphere that those tracks have, creating something that's a little bit thicker, that gives it a little bit more parameters, that gives it a little bit more of a footprint, making the tracks slightly larger, slightly bigger, not just in volume, but in presence as well. And other songs dipping a little bit more, becoming more of a layer, a little bit more hidden, still playing an important role, but one that doesn't define necessarily the path that you're taking. So this duality, this ability to merge, move, and weave from beginning to end really becomes one of the calling cards of this record. And when you hear that bass coming through, your ears will perk and you'll have a smile, because it always comes at the right place in order to enhance the overall soundscape that these tracks have. Then you have the drums. I'm not sure if they had drums on this record or if they had a machine gun, an anti-aircraft machine gun, because I swear to God, it sounded more like an anti-aircraft machine gun than it sounded like drums. This is pulverizing. The drums on this record are out of this world. I think they have an octopus playing drums, because it's the only way that you can make this sort of sound. It sounds like there's 3 different drummers layered one on top of the other. That is the style and brutality that you're going to get consistently from beginning to end on this album. Insane, insane. I love the sound. I love the brutal effect that it gives the record. And I love how it builds the groundwork for everything else, for the vocals to come on top, for the bass to lean in and out of that heaviness, of that wall of sound, and then obviously for the guitars. The technical side mixed in with the more melodic and heavier side, how these worlds combine, it becomes a defining path or a defining moment within the album itself. You see the guitars going and pairing with the drums, becoming very heavy, very uniform in the presence, in the sound, and how they push the tracks forward, and then breaking away from that pact, becoming more technical, more melodic, giving you something for you to digest while the heaviness is still there with the drums, with the guitars, underneath it, allowing that one piece to move a little bit upwards and then get squeezed down by how heavy and how ferocious the vocals are. This combination is absolutely outstanding. I know they used 7 and 8 string guitars on this album. I'm not questioning how many strings are on these guitars. I'm questioning how many fingers they have in order to play tracks this blistering, with this much intent and with this much technicality, packed it all together. To me, it seems something that it required a mathematical formula. It's just absolutely out of this world. The technical ability and how they drive melody, technicality and heaviness all together and weave between one and the other, creating the songs that really have this driving force in them. I already mentioned the vocals, but Ollie on the vocals is I don't know, he packs so many freaking words in one sentence. I don't know how he does it. He really comes across as the puppet master, and he uses his voice almost like pulling strings as he sings along in these songs, as he keeps pace with these tracks, as he actually ignites some of the tracks. Sometimes I feel like he's the fuel that's been added to an already existing fire. That's how he comes across on some songs on this record. Incredible. He just completely dissects these tracks vocally, and I think he's one of a kind in the world of technical death metal. A lot of guys have their own thing, they have their own ability in terms of harsh vocals, in terms of creating heaviness and creating drive, but the way he mixes speed, heaviness is really something unique to the sound of this band and unique to this band itself. Overall, this is a phenomenal record from Archspire. I think they really nailed it everything. When I think of technical death metal, this is always one of the bands that's in the forefront of pushing boundaries and creating records that have all of the elements that you expect from that genre, but at the same time, added playability that is not always the case within technical death metal bands. The way they design a record with 8 songs, 32 minutes is absolutely perfect. If you have an album that's this brutal, this violent, this fast moving, you want the record to be as quick as possible so that the experience is fun, the experience is enjoyable, and the listener comes back to it again. You don't want the listener to feel tired, bored, or overworked by the time you get to the end of the record, because then they're not going to come back to it again. So this album is perfect across all the different parameters within the genre. They are one of a kind, I must say, and this record really showcases their talent. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I already mentioned Abandon the Linear. I have to start off with this track. The bass line is phenomenal. But before we get into the bass line, I love the nice build-up that this track has. The drums are consistently heavy. I mean, that's true about this song. It's true about the entire record. The guitars swerve. They feel like they're moving between melody in the more technical side and then the heavier side. The melody sometimes comes in with the technical side and dissipates completely when you get into the heavier side. But the way it swerves really becomes the force that pushes this with the drums, packing it right behind. It's one of the coolest, if not the coolest, bass lines of the entire record. I just love this song. The moment that I heard that bass line, I was blown away. It really stuck out as one of the tracks that allows the bass to have a predominant role, a consistent predominant role throughout, even though there's a portion of it where the bass doesn't have just a predominant role. It has the complete attention of the audience. Then you sprinkle in all these vocals and you feel like he's just commanding the scene. He's commanding the attention, the way he brings those words in, the way he plucks them out. It's just pinpoint precision all the way throughout this track. This is an absolute banger. It's a demolishing song and it has incredible definition of parameters. You can see all the different elements of the band, drums, vocals, guitars, and bass coming together in one single song. Next you have Drain of Incarnation. Stripped down track. I really felt that this was a song that had a more stripped down intro, almost melancholic. It felt completely out of nature, so it resets your brain, it resets your mind, it resets your perception of the album. It's really important to have songs like this that kind of break away, at least as they start, at least as the intro. And then once it moves in, once everything else comes into place, the song takes off. The technical side of the guitar playing on this track is excellent. It drives the experience. It becomes the fingerprint of the track itself with the heaviness underneath it. This is a song that has really 2 layers. You could see the heaviness, how thick it is underneath it, and then you can see the technicality of the guitars driving or weaving like a drunk driver on top of it, moving all over the place, bobbing and weaving as it transports the listener all the way from the beginning to the end. It's a song that feels at times that it could not get any more brutal, and then towards the end it gets even more brutal. So something that only a band like Archspire could put together. Last but not least, we have Acrid Canon. The drums and vocals ground this track. The heaviness of the vocals paired up with the consistent heaviness of the drums solidify the bass line for what this song is all about. It's the roots, it's the foundation. Then you have consistent balance as far as that heaviness is concerned that allows the song to feel a little bit better grounded all the way through. The guitars push a little bit more melody. Obviously there's the technical side as well, but I really felt like this was perhaps an overly melodic song as far as the guitars goes. And all of the things coming together create this massive wall of sound. You have heaviness, you have melody, everything together as one coming towards the listener. It adds ebbs and flows because that melody comes in and out, so you have a song that, while feeling very linear from a heaviness perspective, there are some motions, there are some waves in this ocean, and that's really important so that the song doesn't become repetitive all the way throughout. It makes the song actually more driven as far as I'm concerned. The underlying bass on this track is really interesting as well because it doesn't have necessarily a predominant role. It doesn't jump into the forefront when you listen to this track. It has just this ability to be a fragrance. It's there. You could hear it. It's in the background. It's in the back of your mind. It creeps up a little bit. It goes back down a little bit. It creeps up a little bit, but it never comes too much into the forefront. The ability to stay a little bit in the shadows really makes the bass interesting on this song, and it makes the overall song feel a lot more complete. This is it, Archspire, Bleed the Future, on October 29th on Season of Mist. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading them and getting back to you. Take care, guys.